I have Peter here with me, who got in contact with me recently. He is not just a survivor of Cenacolo's cult, but also lived in Front Royal, Virginia, same parish, St. John's Parish, all that area. Anyways, Peter, I guess if you want to tell us a little bit about how you entered the community, whatever details you want to give us on that, I guess we'll just start there.
Thank you, Danielle, for the interview. It's no worries. Always great to talk. I am from Front Royal. I was originally, at the time when I entered Community Cenacolo, I would say was around 2008, and I had gone into that community while I was still living in Bluemont. And I've also am coming from a very dysfunctional, broken family too, so I moved around tons of times. I've moved 40 times in my life. And originally it was through my mom and also my grandmother, when she was still around before she passed. She knew about this place, Cenacolo, through EWTN. And I was around 18 years old, very lost, certainly depressed. I was looking for anything to help me just kind of have a sense of what I needed to work on. And in the beginning, I went to try to better my faith because it's advertised on EWTN. I thought, hey, this is going to help me and also kind of escape my family at the same time. I think I was like most people that entered Cenacolo. They're trying to escape their family or they're in a rough spot. And being young too, at that age, 18, I believe it was my third month there at the Our Lady of Hope House. I jumped the fence, and later on, the responsibles came and got me because I asked for my papers, I asked for my ID, and they never gave it back. Yeah, that was not very fun to deal with, and looking back at it, it did not help my faith whatsoever. And I would discourage anybody from going there.
I think that obviously is one of the big traps, one of the lures of Cenacolo, seeking people who are lost. They are looking for something else. They generally come from backgrounds with a lot of abuse from very, very young ages. And just preying upon the most vulnerable people, I think. Drug addicts are a given. I need to stop just calling them drug addicts, because one of the big things and one of the big issues here, I think, where people get caught into the trap is by identifying who they are with a symptom of damage. So an addiction is a symptom of something. It's not who we are. But one thing that I experienced when I entered in February of 2005, and my final escape from Sevillano was right after the annual fest in 2007, I believe. So I escaped a little bit before you ended up going in there. It's interesting regarding you talking about jumping the fence, because I had been trying to figure out if they are trying to hold people against their will in the American houses, because it's certainly something they're doing overseas. Absolutely. And I think another thing is the manipulative tactic. I think it's much more psychological control there, but just hearing you talk about it now, I'm realizing these people holding our documents, because that's what they do. When we ask to leave and they withhold our documents, they can't do that. That's holding you prisoner there. All right. So you're physically jumping the fence because these people won't give you your documents. I think that's very, very important detail. The fact that you actually jumped the fence to try to get away and they wouldn't give you your documents. So I appreciate you offering that information. Obviously, it helps validate what I'm trying to tell people as well, because it's been very difficult. Can you tell us at all about what preceded you jumping the fence, kind of maybe what took place before that, if there was something specific going on that you recognized, or even if you didn't see it back then, if it's something in retrospect that you're seeing now? Is there anything you can tell us about what preceded jumping the fence and trying to get out while they withheld your documents?
Certainly, certainly jumping the fence was prior to asking several times, hey, give me my wallet back, give me my license back. And then they would just say, oh, no, you can't leave. I mean, you're going to die. You're miserable. And after I guess I saw the fakeness, like the whole shroud of Cenacolo being the school of life or a drug rehab, I mean, it's whatever they want you to think it is. I mean, I was brought up in my family as the self-fulfilling prophecy that I'm the alcoholic and I have this and that. And I maybe drank underage several times before I went to Cenacolo. I certainly lost. I had not many friends because I had moved away so many times. And I was in a case of desperation, I would say. I felt very desperate. I felt like, what is it that I'm missing in life? What is it that I'm doing wrong? And I think specifically Cenacolo tries to target broken people. They target people who are already hurt, whether that be drug addicts, alcoholics, whatever. And I think that is their way to sell it. That's their way to get more people in. Because obviously they're only advertising through EWTN. They only want a specific kind. And that's the other thing. Like they say, oh yeah, here at Cenacolo, we accept all faiths. And it's like, well, really? Because, anyone who shows up who's Protestant, they give a terrible time to. I mean, there was a guy from Tennessee. He was, I think, Baptist. And they gave him so much crap. Albino did. It's like if you're not Catholic to what they expect, you're the enemy. Anyone who's not Catholic is the enemy. And there is no, well, you can have whatever higher power or God or religion. It really just is BS. And then once you actually are there and you ask Albino, hey, Albino, I'm struggling with my faith. And he will not say anything. He's dead silent. The whole community is about money. It's not even about God or faith anymore. I mean, it fails in so many other ways, not just faith, but they fail you with relationships. They fail you with treatment. They fail you with, in my case, doing the right thing. And I think it just causes more darkness to fester because you're not given even the faith aspect. They fail.
Yeah, that's definitely something that I picked up on too. That was very strange. I don't know if they do this to you guys at the American house, but when I arrived in Lord's France and entered Audé's house, that very same night, they were forbidding me from being able to participate in the Catholic Mass there and receive their communion or anything. And I remember thinking that was weird, but I actually put my foot down and said, well, then I'm not staying here. And of course, that was the first day that I was there. And so, of course, they accommodated and ended up letting me do so. But they were going to control and tell me that I couldn't go to Mass and receive communion because, I'm this effed up drug addict and, I shouldn't be receiving communion because that's up to them. They're the ones who are determining everything about us. And I remember thinking that was so weird, but I put up a fight about it. And then it's so much more interesting because later on, once I turned, I believe had just turned 19 around my birthday before they moved me from Audé to Bartrez, when Remy from the sanctuary there in Lourdes, the priest that slayed me against my will, that Mass I was forced to go to. So when I first showed up, they were telling me I wasn't allowed to go to their Mass or participate for an entire month because I had to be up to their standards before I could do that. But then when I didn't want to go to this quote unquote healing Mass, well, now I don't have a choice not to attend. I must participate in that Mass. So there's that control over there. I don't know what they're doing in the Florida house as far as that goes. I found that very interesting. And I think it's not just that if you're not Catholic, I think it's anybody who doesn't fall in line with and agree with what they're saying the truth is and with what they're saying the world is and with who they're saying God is. I think at the end of the day, it doesn't even matter what faith you go in there with or lack thereof. It's got to be Cenacolo's way. It's got to be the Araño's way. It's got to be Stefano's way, Arena's way, Andrea's way. It's got to be Albino's way, Joyce's way. It's not about God. It's not about Christianity. It's not about any of that. It's about becoming what they want us to be. I don't know. Are they doing that in the Florida houses as far as telling you guys you're not allowed to participate in certain things in the first month? Again, they accommodated and made a quote unquote exception for me, which is what they'll do, of course, in the beginning because they haven't even gotten started. They haven't even tried to override you yet once you first get there. So they're going to accommodate and do whatever they can. It's like a toxic relationship. It's like being in a relationship with a sociopath. They accommodate and they'll give you what you demand in the beginning if there's boundaries that you have, but then they'll slowly break those down. At least that's my experience. I'm not sure about you regarding that.
Yes, your first month when I was there in Florida, you weren't allowed to receive communion for a whole month. You also could not go to confession your first month. I had actually known a young man, Joseph, at Mary Immaculate when he first entered. I think he tried to go to confession or something like that, and he eventually did, but then he got put on therapy, and I believe it was his third or fourth month. He escaped Mary Immaculate because they, once again, would not give him his papers. You really can't hold somebody hostage if the law or the court is not making them stay there.
You can't disagree with anything about Cenacolo or the people that they've placed in charge. And I brought that up about the whole Their Lady of Medjugorje thing. Like, I was actually oppressed. I was bullied because I refused to invoke her when they were invoking her, because I always knew what was up with Medjugorje. Long before Cenacolo, I knew what was up with Medjugorje. But I was attacked for that. It's literally anything that is not submitting to what they're trying to do to us and what they want us to believe in there and who they want us to become in there. There's so many people that I know that, you know, it actually has had severe negative effects on their, well, any relationship with God they were trying to put together, or if it was somebody who didn't have one that wanted one. The aftermath of those of us that get out or escape. I mean, I went in there with a 1-year pill popping addiction. All right. And it's something that happened when I was 17 by a doctor who prescribed it to me, and I did not know any better. So by the time I realized that it was an addiction, which I knew nothing about, 17 it was at the time, that was it. And I was trying to get help the whole time. And I've told a little bit about my story with that earlier on in this channel. But I went in there with a 1-year pill addiction that could have been treated by actual professionals. They're lying and saying that people are going in there with addictions and problems and they're coming out better. They're coming out fixed. And that's just not true. And not true regarding the people who've overdosed, trying to escape and getting out of there.
I think anyone who goes there and survives has their addictions, you know, for sure 10 times worse than when they got there. The heroin addicts that I was there with, even they hated Albino. They just didn't even like the guy. Also, a man that I knew at the Alabama house had tried to commit suicide, and after that, they didn't even give him anything. They just put him on therapy, made him work outside, sleep outside, and somehow that's a cure for someone wanting to kill themselves. Even the psychology of Cenacolo is backwards. Obviously, in any cult, you are not able to speak out against the father or the cult leader. No one can say anything bad about it. I also do remember, I think it was my first or second week in Cenacolo, I had to dig a tree stump out of the ground with no tools, no shovel. It was just with my bare hands. And I remembered my hands bleeding.